Welcome to my channel. World Scene News. Subscribe to my channel for news updates all around the world. In autumn 2025, a rare silence swept through America's industrial heartland. The hum of machinery and the clatter of tools faded, replaced by an uneasy stillness that stretched for miles across factory towns. Boeing, once the gold standard of U.S. manufacturing, made the drastic move to slow or halt production on key assembly lines. The decision stunned the industry, as the company's legendary assembly lines, once symbols of American ingenuity, ground to a halt. This wasn't a routine pause. It was a crisis that sent shockwaves from factory floors to the White House. Workers who had spent decades building America's most iconic aircraft now faced uncertainty, their livelihoods hanging in the balance. The shutdown exposed deep problems: aircraft needing major rework, a workforce in turmoil, and a growing sense that Boeing's troubles ran deeper than anyone had realized. Engineers and mechanics scrambled to diagnose issues, poring over blueprints and inspecting grounded planes. The company was forced to admit it had to stop to fix what was broken, no matter the cost. In Washington, shadow factories worked overtime to repair jets fresh off the line with defects, a symbol of Boeing's quality control crisis. The pressure was relentless, as teams raced against the clock to restore confidence in the brand. Meanwhile, in St. Louis, thousands of defense workers walked out, halting production of vital military hardware in a bitter labor dispute. The picket lines grew longer, and the standoff threatened to drag on for weeks. The result: a perfect storm. Commercial divisions struggled with past mistakes, as fleets of jets sat idle, waiting for fixes that seemed to multiply by the day. Defense was paralyzed by strikes, with assembly lines locked and military contracts in jeopardy, and the entire industry felt the impact. Airline executives scrambled to adjust schedules, and suppliers braced for cascading delays. For airlines, the Pentagon, and the public, the message was clear: Boeing was in deep trouble. The ripple effects reached every corner of the aviation world, from pilots to passengers. As the lines went quiet, one voice was ready to respond: President Donald Trump, a longtime champion of American industry. He saw Boeing's crisis as a test of American resolve and leadership. He wasn't about to let Boeing's troubles go unnoticed. The fate of a national icon and the future of American manufacturing was now on the line. Why did Boeing hit pause? What could bring one of the world's most advanced manufacturing giants to a grinding halt, leaving its vast factory floors eerily quiet? The answer isn't simple. It's a story of mounting pressures, both old and new, converging in a perfect storm. The answer: a collision of old problems and new crises. Boeing's troubles didn't appear overnight. They built up over years, each issue compounding the next, until the company had no choice but to stop and take stock. First, years of quality failures, especially on the 787 Dreamliner, forced Boeing to divert resources to massive rework projects, draining skilled labor from new production. Instead of building new jets, experienced mechanics and engineers were pulled away to fix old mistakes, slowing progress to a crawl and sapping morale across the company. Second, a global supply chain still in disarray left critical parts missing, stalling assembly lines and leaving jets unfinished. Even the most skilled workers couldn't build planes without the right components, and delays rippled through every stage of production. Third, a 15-week strike in St. Louis by over 3,200 machinists shut down military aircraft production as workers demanded better pay and benefits. The strike highlighted deep frustrations within the workforce, and negotiations dragged on as deadlines slipped by. Each problem fed the next. Rework strained the workforce, supply shortages made recovery impossible, and labor unrest brought everything to a halt. The pressure on employees was immense, with stress and uncertainty growing by the day. The company was under siege from every direction: past mistakes, present shortages, and future uncertainty. Managers scrambled to find solutions, but the scale of the crisis was overwhelming. Slowing down wasn't a choice, it was a last resort. The decision to halt production was a signal that Boeing needed to regroup, rethink, and rebuild from the ground up. Boeing's troubles had been brewing for years, but in 2025, they all came due at once. The company faced a reckoning that could no longer be postponed or ignored. The result: a company forced to confront its failures in full view of the world. Cameras rolled as executives faced tough questions, and the public watched as Boeing struggled to chart a path forward. The silence on the factory floor was the sound of a reckoning, a moment when the past caught up with the present and the future of Boeing hung in the balance. Boeing's slowdown rippled far beyond its factories, sending shockwaves through communities, industries, and even the nation's defense. The most immediate impact was on jobs, thousands of livelihoods suddenly at risk, 17,000 layoffs in late 2024, with suppliers and service providers nationwide feeling the pain. For many families, the uncertainty was overwhelming, as paychecks vanished and futures were thrown into doubt. When Boeing slows, small businesses across America suffer. Machine shops, parts, suppliers, and local diners all feel the pinch. The ripple effect triggers more layoffs, deepening economic anxiety in towns that depend on aviation. Airlines like Southwest, counting on new 737 MAX jets, were left scrambling, forced to adjust schedules and rethink their growth plans. They had to keep older, less efficient planes flying, cancel routes, and delay expansion. The result: higher costs, missed opportunities, and frustrated passengers facing delays and fewer options. But the stakes were even higher for national security, where delays could have far-reaching consequences. The St. Louis strike halted production of critical military aircraft, putting vital defense projects on hold. This meant delays for the Air Force's modernization, leaving aging fleets in service longer than planned. The Navy, too, was left short on new jets, straining its ability to respond to global threats. In a volatile world, these delays became strategic vulnerabilities, raising alarms in Washington and beyond. A labor dispute in Missouri could impact military readiness across the globe. A quality issue in Washington could disrupt airlines in Texas, showing just how interconnected the system is. Boeing's troubles exposed the fragility of America's supply chains, revealing how a single point of failure can threaten the entire network. The risks of relying on a single giant became painfully clear, as communities and industries struggled to adapt. The shutdown was a national crisis, not just a corporate one. Its effects rippled through the economy, the military, and the very fabric of American life. Its fallout touched everyone from mechanics and engineers to airline passengers and soldiers on the front lines, reminding us how deeply connected we all are to the fate of American industry. President Trump responded to Boeing's crisis with his trademark mix of public pressure and deal-making. He called the shutdown a threat to American strength, urging a swift end to the St. Louis strike and warning that rivals like Airbus would benefit. Trump's focus: get the factories running, keep planes flying, and protect the Made in America brand. Behind the scenes, his administration prioritized Boeing's bottom line, securing massive export deals to keep revenue flowing. Labor disputes were secondary. The real goal was to maintain Boeing's global dominance. For Trump, Boeing's health was America's health. His message: protect the company at all costs, even if it meant sidelining worker demands. For Boeing's workers, the shutdowns and strikes were about more than pay. They were about respect and survival. On the picket lines in St. Louis, skilled mechanics felt undervalued, fighting for fair wages and the return of lost pensions. The 15-week strike stretched families to the limit, with minimal strike pay and mounting stress. Many believed the company prioritized profits over people, and that the union wasn't fighting hard enough. When the strike ended, workers won a significant raise, but had to compromise on long-term security. Relief was mixed with resentment. The divide between the factory floor and the boardroom had only grown. Paychecks alone couldn't heal the rift exposed by the crisis. For airlines, Boeing's delays were a logistical and financial nightmare. Carriers like Southwest, relying on new 737 MAX jets, had to keep older, costlier planes in service, driving up fuel and maintenance expenses. The inability to expand fleets meant lost revenue and canceled routes. Operational chaos followed. Pilot schedules, maintenance, and routes had to be constantly adjusted, frustrating both staff and passengers. The uncertainty made long-term planning impossible and eroded trust in Boeing. Billions were tied up in delayed orders, and patience wore thin. Airlines couldn't switch to Airbus overnight, but many began rethinking their reliance on a single supplier. The crisis forced a reckoning in airline boardrooms across the globe. The St. Louis shutdown was a direct blow to U.S. military readiness. With 3,200 workers on strike, production of the F-15EX, Super Hornet, and T-7A Red Hawk ground to a halt. The Air Force's fleet modernization stalled, and the Navy faced gaps in its carrier air wings. Delays in next-generation projects like the F-47 stealth fighter gave rivals time to catch up. The strike was a self-inflicted wound, exposing the vulnerability of America's defense industrial base. For the Trump administration, the situation was a strategic headache. Unfinished jets meant weakened deterrence. The Pentagon was left to manage the fallout, while the president focused on export deals. The lessened military power depends on both technology and the skilled workers who build it. Despite the chaos, Boeing's financial story was a paradox. Shutdowns and strikes slashed revenue by 14%, and billions were tied up in undelivered jets. Yet aggressive overseas sales, backed by the Trump administration, kept Boeing's order backlog strong, with over $521 billion in future deals. Export contracts cushioned the blow, reassuring Wall Street even as domestic operations faltered. For workers, news of massive foreign sales stung. They saw a company flush with orders but unwilling to restore pensions. Airlines, meanwhile, grew frustrated as the backlog pushed their deliveries further out. The crisis revealed a disconnect: promises made in boardrooms abroad, and promises broken on the factory floor. Boeing's future was being secured overseas, while its domestic troubles deepened. Boeing stands at a crossroads, forced to confront deep-rooted problems. The challenge: rebuild trust with workers, airlines, and the public by prioritizing quality, safety, and labor relations. America's aerospace dominance is at stake. Boeing's struggles have opened the door for rivals like Airbus and China. The company's health is tied to national security and economic strength. The crisis is a warning. Short-term profits can't come at the expense of engineering and workforce stability. Recovery will require humility, investment, and a renewed commitment to Boeing's founding principles. The world is watching to see if this American giant can rise again. The answer will shape the future of U.S. manufacturing.